very shortly will be saying Amen. That means it's all over and done with. If you're not on the queue, it's all over. So let me allow my boss, the Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Mosotomiapia, to come and give us an update. One more time, welcome to those people that I'm seeing this afternoon. I'm seeing a lot of chomis, by the way, that have covered elections with me over the years. Thank you once more for honoring this appointment. Let's get the CEO to give us an update. We'll do a little bit of Q&A and then begin to assist our officials throughout the country to begin the countdown. Once we're closer to the hour, we become invisible. CEO?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Kate is my colleague, but during this process, she really orders me around, I must say.
Thank you, CEO.
I'll get you, Kate. Yeah. Excuse me. The Electoral Commission is pleased to report that voting continues smoothly at voting stations throughout the country. As at 1700 hours today, all voting stations were reported as open, and all logistical and other challenges which had impacted voting earlier in the day had been resolved. The Electoral Commission is especially pleased that no significant incidents of unrest or deliberate disruptions to voting have been reported. However, the worsening weather conditions in some parts of the country, notably the Eastern Cape Province, KwaZulu-Natal, Free State, and parts of the Northern Cape, continue to present challenges to the voting process, especially in temporary infrastructure that we use, tents in the main. At least 30 tents had been reported as being significantly affected by the gale force winds, and the Electoral Commission has taken a decision to allow voting stations in the worst affected areas to move to nearby permanent structures where feasible. This will be done in consultation with party liaison committees as well as the security establishments. Such moves will be concluded as agreed in every one of the local party liaison committees, as I indicated, and under the oversight of party agents and the South African Police Services providing security. The Electoral Commission is also saddened to report the deaths at or in the vicinity of voting stations of 2 more voters in 2 separate incidents. These occurred in Ingwe Municipality in KwaZulu-Natal and Strathspey in the Western Cape. In both incidents, it would appear that the deaths were from natural causes. The Electoral Commission also received a report before 1700 hours today regarding an alleged shooting near a voting station in Lim 345 in Limpopo. This is a municipality housing Vuwani and parts of what was Malamulele. No further details or confirmation were available at the time of issuing this statement. We've also been informed a moment ago when consulting with political parties in the party liaison committee room that a party, in this instance, I'm sure I can indicate that the ANC lost one of its staff members in Strathspey in Cape Agulhas, who was working at the voting station on behalf of the political party. These have been very difficult instances. Our elections have not experienced this, and we as the Commission are saddened at the passing away of these voters and or individuals working in the electoral process. We also had reports that an election official was also seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident in the Northern Cape and had to be airlifted to hospital in Kimberley. The Electoral Commission extends its condolences to the families of those deceased and wish our staff members a speedy recovery. With just under 2 hours remaining for voting in the 2016 municipal elections, the Electoral Commission makes a final appeal to voters who have not voted to make their way to their voting stations to cast their vote. Voting stations will close at 7 p.m., but voting will continue until all voters who are at a voting station and in the queue as at 7 p.m. have been allowed to vote. We thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and wish to indicate that that is the update of the process going today. We are satisfied. Voting is proceeding well. There are instances isolated that we will continue to deal with them, but generally the process is underway. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, CEO. The big countdown has begun. That means that in a few minutes from here, we'll be saying goodbye 2016 municipal elections. Let me open the floor for a few questions of clarity, and then from then we'll be withdrawing so that we can assist colleagues across the country to deal with the closure of voting stations. I've got a question here, this side and this side. Yes, ma'am.
Hi,
Please stand up, introduce yourself, and tell us where you come from.
Hi, I'm Industry of Independent Media. Obviously, we got journals all over the country, and there's been a number of reports of politicians who are still canvassing. Also, a lot of people have complained that they're still getting SMSs from the DA and the ANC, and then people have been moved away from polling stations as well for canvassing. Just want to get an idea from you how big this problem has been, and if we should be concerned.
Okay.
Just follow up, Brown, Independent Media.
Karima, sorry, we need to see you. All right, proceed.
From your point of view, would you give all the political parties a tick? Did they behave? Did they play within the rules? And if some of them didn't, can you please name and shame?
Karima man, it's 2016. What's wrong with you? All right, Jody?
Jody James from ENCA. We've received reports about the SANDF busy closing polling stations out in Vuya. Do you know anything about this?
All right. Thank you, Jody. Can I take another 2 questions before we...
From ENCA. 2 questions quickly. One, about voter turnout. I know you said you don't keep a running tally of voter turnout, but what is the picture that is emerging before you can, bring us a final, fuller picture of what is happening? Second one, UDM leader Bantu Holomisa says voting without IDs at VD number 1159 1344, Ward 26, King Sabata Daligiebo in the Eastern Cape. Can you indeed confirm if this is happening? And I would say this is quite serious. It's not one of these niggling issues that we've been talking about. If people are voting without IDs, I would say it's quite serious.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Yana de Sunday Times. My question regards special votes. The province of Mpumalanga had an unusual number of special votes covered units, an enormous number. Why would you say that 280,000 out of the 720,000 special votes in the country was cast in a small province like Mpumalanga?
Thank you very much. Let's pause there. I've got 5 questions with me. Let me allow the Chief Electoral Officer to deal with some issues of clarity, and then we'll take the last round of questions.
I never know whether too many questions mean that the press briefing is too detailed or not. Anyway, canvassing. We dealt with that problem or the issue, the question earlier. The law is clear. What is prohibited today are political gatherings. Canvassing outside of the voting station. And those of you that have a little blue book with legislation in, look at section 75. SMSs are not an issue today. I hope that really deals with that. Political meetings, gatherings, not permitted. Those things inside the boundaries of the voting stations, not permitted. Elsewhere, far from the station, where it's quiet, it's not meetings, it's not that sort of thing, not a problem. We have shared this with our political parties. They understand it. We've discussed it extensively. Name and shame. This year, for the first time, I think, since 1994, or after the elections of 1994, we've seen a very interesting process. We have the Directorate for Electoral Offences, where any violations that anybody believe must be referred to the court have raised them with us. That will remain open to parties to see who is being challenged and so on and so forth. That's the only proper measure, I think, in my view, that will stand the test of scrutiny to say you behaved well or you did not behave well. We don't do, it's difficult to make this thing subject to, to deal with them subjectively. So we will make that available. We are still dealing with these issues, but as part of the election report, clearly those details of how we have fared in terms of electoral offences, who was involved, what the nature of those offences were. These are public records and we will share them. SANDF closing voting stations in Vuwani? Certainly not. We will close the voting stations. The Electoral Commission took a decision, and perhaps we did not share that. I thought that we did, but we may not have done so. The Commission took a decision to say that in areas or areas in Vuwani, stations will close at 5 and not 7 today. But this meant, like in all other instances, that where there are voters in the voting station, they will be assisted with their votes. This is not a decision taken unilaterally by the Commission. The Commission has consulted, and the Commission in law has the authority to determine voting hours as circumstances may require. Turnover at voting stations, we don't do polls. We'll do election results. We don't want to say to you, we think there were 13,000 people at one, and then we declare results and have 17,000 people. You say, what happened? We do the real deal, and that's what we're going to issue when voting stations close. I hope that will serve all of us well. Voting without IDs, I don't know. I did not hear that, and it was not me. But we have an instance which we have dealt with in the Party Liaison Committee where 3 people, 3, in the King Sabata Dalinjabo municipality are reported to have voted without an ID, and the presiding officer might be in some cold place at the moment. We have dealt with that situation very decisively. There were no more than 3 people. And I don't know, when we say people and we talk about 3 out of 26.3 million people, it's a big issue. Special votes, 280,000 people in Mpumalanga. This question has come and we have responded to this question. Perhaps I need to respond to it one more time. The law is very clear. It indicates under what circumstances special votes may be received and may be approved. When applications are received, they are evaluated in terms of the legislative prescript. They are either approved or then rejected. You will recall we indicated to you that we had received 740,000 applications in these elections for special votes. We have only approved 719,000 some change. Let's call it 720. We did this based on the prescripts, and the rest we approved because they satisfy the prescripts. People have asked us, there have been 18-year-olds that have applied for a special vote. They said there is no provision that said if you're 18 or younger, you're not allowed. You may be infirm and still be 18. You may be traveling outside of your voting station or on election day and still be 18. You may even be an officer in a voting station on election day and you're 18. So these are matters. Of course we ask these questions. We try and find out. And the only thing there is to say at the moment is that none of those special votes are irregular in terms of the law or as the law provides. I don't know, maybe there's more cell phone coverage in Mpumalanga than anywhere else, I don't know, but they were all legit. Thank you very much.
Let's take the last round of questions before we close this session of the press briefing. I see hands already. Yeah, from here, and then you go that side, and then let's end up this way. We'll cover you. Thank you.
From Progressive Independent News Agency. I got an update from a colleague who's in Vuwani that people are busy with their normal lives. They are not in the police stations, they are not going to police stations to vote. And how true is this? You mentioned, CEO, that you are satisfied, the Commission is satisfied about the
Thanks. Very basic question. The number of polling stations in the Vuwani area which have been closed at 5 p.m., which closed early.
Janet Hurd, Media 24. Could you tell us a bit more about requests for extensions of the deadline, and if so, how many and on what circumstances they would be granted? And if you have any more detail on areas that perhaps have already been granted extensions. Thanks.
You mean deadline beyond 7 p.m.?
Deadline beyond 7, yeah.
Anton Meyer from Pretoria FM. My question is also about the extension of the closing time, especially in the areas where the tents have been blown away by the Gale 4 suites. And secondly, have you communicated to the members or the individuals that have to vote at these tents that you have decided to move the tents or the voting station to a permanent structure nearby? And then also, have you received any complaints and how many? If you can tell us about that. Thank you.
Zarvari from Salam Media. Can you just give some details on the counting process after these stations have closed, and when can we begin to expect results?
United Party CI Radio, we are led to believe that the IEC has received complaints regarding alleged electoral code violations. We need to just understand what are the nature of these violations and how has the IEC dealt with them. Thank you.
All right, I think I've covered all the ends, and let's deal with the issues raised, and then we'll wrap up for the evening. CEO.
There's a question that says, how true is the allegation that people are progressing with their normal activity? I'd like that to be true. Vuwani, it's not a village, it's a fairly large area. The communities differ one from the other. I understand there have been variable levels of participation. There were stations where it was reported there were queues, and there were others where it was reported that activity was slow. That's the best I can give to you at this stage. But nowhere in Vuwani is there a situation of violence, a situation where people have been stopped from going to stations that has been brought to our attention. I'd like to think perhaps that's the normal activity we're talking about. The number of voting stations in Vuwani, I think, and I don't carry all of this, the knowledge of the 22,612 with me, but I think there are about 56 stations. More or less, we can confirm. I think it's 56. Extension of voting hours. There is no extension of voting hours no decision on the extension of voting hours that has been taken by the Commission. I'm not saying that the Commission may not do so, but at this point, none of the stations have been given an extension to close later. Moving of tents, how do we communicate this to voters? We are looking at a solution to the problem where in temporary infrastructure such as tents, we have trouble. Even if we have to use a stoop somewhere where voters close to the voting station and can redirect voters there with the involvement of political parties, the police, our own staff, that's what we are looking at doing. There is an intervention, as I've indicated. The party liaison committee will be consulted where such a decision has to be taken, and voters' interests will be taken into account. Counting process, every voting station will count at that station when the voting station closes. The only exceptions, if there are, will be those places where we have indicated that at the time of closing, the station doesn't hold, it's a temporary one, and there's an agreement that let's move into a facility close by. By agreement, I must stress, or consultation and understanding, we will then do that work. Results will come once counting has been concluded. We are counting as soon as the station closes. We're not going to go to bed and say we'll count tomorrow. We'll count until the result is determined. The result slip will be filled. Political parties will countersign the result slip, and we will paste that result slip, a copy of that, in a public place at that voting station. I nearly said notice board, but there are many stations that don't have a notice board. So, you know, it might be a door, it might be a window, it might be a wall for everybody to have. And a copy of the original copy will be transported to a place where we will capture under escort, in the same way that we saw ballots being escorted in the morning. And party agents are free to follow the escort. Violations to the Electoral Code of Conduct. We have dealt with violations. I must admit, today I wasn't looking at violations. I was looking at the electoral process. There are guys in this room here who are receiving them and we're processing them. We'll get an update with them. Perhaps at the next opportunity where we update you, we will update you on whether there has been a move on anything, there have been increases, or perhaps some matters withdrawn. I want to thank you very much, and I believe we are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, CEO. We'll come back just after, hopefully before 10 p.m. The next media briefing should be around 9ish, when voting stations have closed. And I'm going to make a special appeal in the next hour. We'll be ensuring that we assist officials across the country as they close their voting stations. We're not going to be taking individual requests for interviews, so please bear with us, because we have to service more than 22,000 voting stations across the country. Thank you very much. Let's catch up later.